just go over a little cover what we're going to talk about today. So we titled this call Service or Servitude, How to End the Martyr Game. So we're going to cover just what is service and just a little bit of a conversation about that. We're going to talk about the upcoming Aquarius Virgo moon cycle. And what that means is that the new moon will be in Aquarius, the full moon will be in Virgo in this next cycle that starts. We're going to talk about how to recognize true service and also just some of the things that we substitute for service. And we'll talk about just a little bit about the moon cycles and kind of how that works, and then also how you can go deeper, and a little bit about our monthly program. So service, and I like to actually say service consciousness, because I think that sometimes we look at service as an action, and it can express as an action for sure. But ideally it's a consciousness. I like to ask this question too, like, how do you define service? And you can come off mute or type it into the chat, or Cheryl or Monique, if you want to talk about like how you've perceived that in your lifetime, or how you define service. I can say, like, on a basic level, I think that for a lot of my life, I saw it as doing for others, or serving a greater cause, serving something larger than myself, maybe.
I would agree with that. That has been a way that I have looked at it. And then for me, growing up in a church community, I was always very aware of that, like being of service and doing good. And so there was a lot of energy placed on how to please God with service, is what I would say. So, yeah.
I think I've matured my experience of it, because when I was younger, I perceived service as a way to sometimes keep people happy. Didn't always serve, but I saw service in that way, and that was confusing. But then as I matured and got in touch with my unique gifts, deep into my spirituality, and then I understood that there was an energy that was coming through me uniquely, and that it was matched into a need, right, to be serviced in the world. But that was not always true. I didn't always see it that way. So I had to redefine service as I literally became more awake, more aware, more conscious myself of energy. So now I think I'm in a better space with it. But initially it was a very confusing word. It had lots of traps in it initially. Maybe even serving God just so that I'd be graced and not condemned,
Yeah, same for me. I mean, sometimes I think religion is part of the cause of our perception of what service is being skewed. Like some of the things I learned in that realm definitely feel that way. Janet says, I think I consider it service when it's something I wouldn't otherwise do just for myself. Yeah, that's interesting. I think that at times, especially when I was younger, I think I've used like the idea of service to fill a need or to feel useful.
I hear you.
Yeah. Looks like Phoebe, you've got your hand raised. Do you want to? We can take you off mute if you want to say something.
Sure. Yeah, I raised my hand. I took myself off mute. But greetings, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
So service to me, just to answer your question, service to me, I used to actually get service confused with helping for most of my life. And I learned more recently, like in more recent years, that service and help are not the same. And now I understand service as being something that has to have a reciprocity. So, you know, for example, when you think of it like being a service provider, you know, people don't go to a service provider and, you know, it's not something that's, you know, being given without some reciprocity, whether it be payment, like money, or whether there's another type of, you know, there's some type of benefit for both. It's like a mutually beneficial relationship that you have for, you know, the person who you are serving, or the cause you are serving. It's also something that's benefiting the person that's providing the service in some type of way. So I think that that reciprocity is really important when I think about service anyway, especially if it's going to be healthy, and you know, it's going to be something that adds to, and that is for your greatest good, instead of, like, you know, being depleting. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. Sure.
Thank you.
We're definitely going to dive into discussion around service. I want to cover, before we do that, just
I
talk.
think Cheryl shared a comment too, which I think.
Oh, she did. Okay, I didn't see it. Let me see.
Cheryl Rock.
Got it. Okay, Cheryl sees it as being philanthropic.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So the reason that service is kind of the topic that we chose, when we do a moon cycle, we usually try to center on a theme based on the astrology of the month. And so this month, we're going to be starting out our moon cycle with the sun in Aquarius. And so we're going to also have our new moon in Aquarius. Some of the keywords for Aquarius: freedom, genius, nonconformity. You know, Aquarius is a sign that has a little bit of a rebellious energy to it. It wants to be free at all costs, and also really true to itself as well. And so with the new moon happening in Aquarius, we're going to be clearing around these issues too. So any places where we feel boxed in, or we don't feel free, or that we want to feel more free, or any places where we are conforming and not being our true selves, like, you know, that's a little bit what will be coming up in the earlier part of this cycle. And then we'll be having a full moon in the sign of Virgo. And that's kind of where this whole service angle came from. Virgo is the sign that's associated with service in the world, and precision and growth. Virgo wants to improve upon itself. So what we're looking at for the theme is, how do I find the truest service that is an expression of the divine within me? So if we really, you know, if we're doing this work around the new moon, of really getting clear about what our true genius is, and you know, whatever ways we're holding that back or not allowing that, and then allow that to be the place where we serve from when this is activated during the full moon. So that's kind of the journey that we're looking at this month: releasing Aquarian detachment, restoring Virgo's purity. We were just talking about, like, I like talking about purification for the sign of Virgo, because I think that's really ideally what Virgo looks to do, is to, you know, continue to distill down into what is the truest essence, what is the truest service. Monique, you're a Virgo. Is that true for you?
It is. It's absolutely
Yeah.
true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add about the astrology of this month?
I don't. You covered it.
Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about this idea of service. And I started out with substitutions for service, because I think that I think we do have misconceptions, or I think we sometimes define things as service that are not service. You know, if we are feeling like, I think sometimes we get into a position where something may feel like it's service, and it's really servitude. You know, and we're maybe doing something we don't entirely want to be doing, or it doesn't also serve us. We feel obligated. I think resentment is a big red flag, you know, that kind of lets us know when, like, service is out of balance in some way. I think it happens in the context of relationship, sometimes where we'll do things for another, assuming that there's a specific thing that will happen in return. And sometimes it's without any discussion, like, well, if I do this, this person will do this. And then when they don't, we feel resentful. And I think it's because it's not out in the open. We're not consciously doing it, or we're not in that consciousness where we are doing it because it's what we want to be doing. I don't know, does anyone else have any ways that you feel like you've been out of alignment in terms of your relationship with service?
Yeah, I was very much taught by my parents that service was how you earned love, right? So all of my relationships, which I'm seeing now is like, but just, yeah, giving, thinking that was somehow gonna win me in the end. And it hasn't yet.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Like, yeah, I feel like I learned that too, like if I do things for people, they'll love me.
Yeah. So now I'm learning how to do them for myself. So I love me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I feel like I also learned a model of service sometimes that was more like sacrifice, like where I would be doing something and it wasn't really a service to me, or it was draining to me, or I was doing it and I didn't want to be doing it. And and that's a funny thing, because I really think that I think at its best, at its highest, service is something that it is a choice, and it does serve you as well. If you're showing up at the soup kitchen and you have a crappy attitude about the whole thing, you don't really want to be there. Like, what's the energy that you're actually putting out there? Like, is it really service? Yeah. I don't know, Cheryl or Monique, do you have any ways that has shown up for you can think of?
Well, I can relate to the resentment piece, because I would want to serve my relationships. And it would be confusing because I'd have a story like, this is how I take care, or this is how I love, and I would expect an end result. I would expect an appreciation or a handshake, and I end up resentment. And my thing, as a human design person, is bitterness. I'd feel very bitter, because it would I'd put myself into a hole, and I would be the only one that knew I felt this way. And that was just, a very lonely place to be, behind this facade of I'm in service, So I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, being a Virgo, I find that I am naturally and organically somebody who serves. It's just it's the way I function. And so I've had to really, over the years, begin to really check my motivation, just so that I know where I'm doing things from, because everything that I do is somehow aligned with some idea of service inside of me. It's just the way I'm built. I'm a 6th house Virgo with the Sun, Jupiter, and Uranus, and Pluto all in the 6th house. So it just requires being very aware of what's going on the inside, so that I know where I'm moving from. And throughout the day, I can go, oh, that's manipulation. You're just trying to get what you want, and oh, okay, that's sincere. And so I have to check myself and just ask myself, am I doing this because I have joy doing it? And if I don't, then either change my energy or don't do it. So it's constant.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So let's talk about that more. I can share, for me, how I've learned to identify when I'm in service and when I'm not. And Monique, maybe you can share more too of how you've learned to identify that as well. For me, I have a couple little tests that I sort of put myself through. Because here's what I think of service. True service really is a state of being. It is, when I'm thinking about doing something for another person, or, doing some sort of act of service, ideally, it should serve me, it should serve the other person and the planet. Like, I think of service like a tripod, like it's a win-win for everyone. And that can get a little tricky. And, so I have 3 questions I'll ask myself when I'm thinking about doing something. And the first one is it good for me? Does it really fill me with joy to think about doing this? Would I do this regardless of what I get in return? And the second one is it good for them? That question can also, there's a whole lot of gray in that. The example I like to use is that if you're tying your child's shoes when they're 2, that's probably a service. If they're 10 or 12, it might not be a service anymore. It really might not be in service to that developing person. And there's all kinds of shades of gray in between as to whether something is a true service to someone else. Are you taking away someone else's agency? Are you assuming they don't have their own divinity or thing that guides it? Like there's all kinds of ways that can get gunked up, really. And then the third question is, do I want to do it? And ideally, the answer is yes to all 3 questions. If it's not, something might be off. The other analogy I use is like to think of yourself as a cup and saucer. You want to keep the cup full to overflowing, and you only serve from the saucer. So if there's nothing in the saucer, if your cup is empty, you have nothing to give. And no matter how noble what you're about to do is, it's not a true act of service if it isn't also serving you, if you're depleted, if you have nothing to offer. Cheryl, you and I were talking about the relationship between service and the ability to receive. And I think that's something that we'll go into during this month for sure.
Yeah.
Because I think it really is what brings it back into balance at times. Like that's the classic thing, like people who overgive or overserve and it's out of balance, very often what corrects that balance is learning how to receive.
Amen.
Learning how to serve yourself, like to feel served. And that can be a challenge because really, like there are ways that we do things for others as a way to get to a certain feeling state, as a way to feel appreciated or loved, or, and it's not a clear act of service. And so I use like both that analogy and those questions to help me in the moment when I'm not sure what my motivations are. Like, it's like a little check-in that helps, like, and the one that trips me up a lot is, do I want to do it? It's like, there are so many times where it's like, oh yeah, no, I don't. And there are times where Monique, like you were saying, that sometimes it is a shift, like I do want to do it, but something feels off. And so I need to just line up with it better, where it really does feel like it's a clear yes. And like it is serving me.
Right.
It's possible I may just need to recharge or refill my cup or,
Right.
And that's one of the things I check to see, do I feel energy? Like, do I feel enlivened in my movement forward? Because sometimes I can make a movement and I can feel I'm draining, or I'm not connected to spirit, and it's not coming from my highest self, and then it has a different feel. One feeds my energetics and one literally zaps my energy often.
Yeah.
And as long as I make a conscious choice when I move, I'm okay. But if I'm not conscious, it can turn out messy. It can turn out messy.
Yeah. I think
has a question.
Oh, okay.
Janet. She says, but what if it's something no one else can do? Ooh, that's good. Let me. That is such an interesting thing. It's when I find myself in that belief system, then I really ask myself, like, what's my ego needing right now? If I believe that I'm the only person that can, or because it's my belief that God is the creator of it all. So I will work with myself to help myself realize that I'm not God in anybody's life but my own. Like that. And I do that with my child often, because as a mother, I have often said, I'm the only one. And I had to really come to an understanding that my child has God as much as I do, and I am not that God. And so I started opening up to allow other people to be of service to him, other women, so that it wasn't just about me and me sort of gratifying my own egoic need to feel sort of special or needed, or just checking all the answers. So that's it. Christine, what do you have to say or share?
It's very similar for me. I have completely found myself in that dilemma. And when I really sit with it, and I will sit there and I'll ask out loud, like, is that really true? Am I the only person who can do this?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I see my own motivation as like, oh no, I want to feel like I'm the only person that can do this.
Yeah.
I want to feel like it makes me feel important. It makes me feel special. And the truth usually is, though, that I'm not.
Yeah.
And sometimes if it really, if I ask myself the question and it really does feel like, yeah, I'm the one who has to do this, then I will work to say, well, okay, how can I get myself to a place where I feel good about doing it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If it really feels like something I can't pass off.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times it's the first one. A lot of times it's just, I don't want somebody else to do it because they're not going to do it the way I do it, or they're going to mess it up. Like
Right.
it won't be perfect, and it's like my own stuff, really.
Yeah, that was a good question.
It's an excellent question, and I think so many people get caught up in that. I know I have, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, motherhood cured me of that one.
If I really answer the question, I'm trying to control is what happens for me. And then I have to receive it as a growth opportunity. That's how I shift it. Okay, so how do I recreate this? Now I'm looking to take power more into balance, because being someone who has been in an imbalanced relationship to service, I've really had to sit down and just be, okay, I'm growing. This is a growth opportunity. I'm learning how to manage energy. How can I recreate? And that brings me into this place of, it's okay. All right, I'll do it now. And I feel better about it because I've shifted a perspective as to how did I get here? How am I feeling this way? Wow.
I feel like for me, that happened to me a lot in the context of relationship. Like there were things that I felt like I had to do, or my partner couldn't do these things. And I realized, like, when I was able to let that go more and really calm myself on it, what I learned is that, one, I am trying to control things and I'm taking away this person's agency, like to assume that they can't step into something.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that question of like, is it good for the other person? Like sometimes that's not. Sometimes it's really like I'm deciding that this person isn't capable.
Yes.
And when I released that, it's like it was actually really freeing when I do let go of those things. And I still, I get tripped up by it still at times. But the ones where I have let go, it's like sometimes people will really amaze you at the level that they'll step into something if you don't always do it.
That is a word.
Okay.
Yeah.
You cannot save anyone.
That's right.
Mhm.
Let the ball fall and see what people do. It is profound.
Yeah.
If you let things hit, just let the glass break and walk away from it and see if it shows up to sweep it up. People will start to show up.
Sometimes the most powerful service you can offer is just 2 words. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I can't do that.
That's right.
And it's amazing how, and I think it goes in with that learning to receive too, that like when you allow space for people to also serve, the thing to keep in mind, I think especially people that get really caught up in being the ones that want to do things or ones to be of service, is that you deprive other people from how good it feels to do something for someone else. You know, like allow people to give you that same thing that you're willing to put out there.
It's interesting as you're saying this. One of the things that has been a huge component of my life, like growing up with parents who were addicts and all that, like I received a lot, like people did a lot for me. And being on the receiving end from the perspective, so I could feel when people felt pity, which is not service. I could feel when people just saw who I was and they really wanted to be supportive, and which was very beneficial. But I will say that being on that end of what we would call service really inspired me to want to be deserving of people's kindness and people's wisdom and insight and generosity. But it also really inspired me to want to fulfill on the gifting that was like I want people to look at me and go, oh, I'm happy I gave to her because look at what she did with it, you know, that kind of thing. And so service is a real experience between people. Like we need it. We need to give it and we need to receive it. And when there's benefit involved, everybody wins. And you just, you know, and I think I'm just trying to say that it's one thing to be of service. It's another thing to receive the service.
I appreciate you speaking to that part of it, because, you know, that is that flip side. It's like you can feel when someone's giving to you because they think you can't do it, or like you're saying, out of pity, like, and that doesn't feel good at all.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So generating service consciousness. Here's some questions to really sit with. What is your truest and highest service? These are great meditation questions, you know, and you may be surprised. There's times where I've asked that question and I know for a fact that some of my greatest service in life is something that is mostly invisible. You know, like how I parented, I feel like was a service. It was something that was genuinely mine to give. And I felt completely aligned with it. So, and this changes, you know, I mean, where I'm at now, there are different things calling me. And so really sitting with that question of what's your truest and highest service? There are things you may be able to do that you can choose to do that may really not be how the truest service expresses from you. So where are you holding back your inner genius? Your inner Aquarian rebel who has a very individual and important perspective. And what intention will you set for this moon cycle based on that? Okay. Shell, do you want to talk about the moon phases?
Yes, I love moon phases. So 13 moons initiation takes us through the process of the moon as it goes through 8 phases. And so we use this energy to really deeply connect and unleash and purify where we've been, right? The experiences that we currently are having in relationship to service and servitude, let's say. We're going to clear those spaces, and you're going to get to choose 2 short-term goals that you will focus this energy on so that you can lift your consciousness and aim it towards manifesting these 2 outcomes in your life. And so we support you moving through each phase, aligning each phase with your own consciousness and bringing you into the energy within yourself as you move through the framework and explore the energy of the moon within you and how it's cultivating you to come into this next phase. And it happens over 8 days. The moon goes through 8 phases. And so we just take you through those phases. In each one, you're moving out of a conditioned state and reconditioning yourself into a new way of being, aligning yourself with the cycles of the moon. Phases. Yeah. It's a beautiful process for transformation. And as you do this process, you're really enlivening an aspect of yourself on your subconscious mind. And so as you do this becomes part of your psyche. I mean, I've been doing the moon phases so long now that I embody it. I can tell when we're moving in, the moon is literally shifting its phases. I can feel it in my consciousness. I know which part of the process that we're moving in. And so it's a beautiful opportunity to align yourself with nature as well. The natural part of who you are.
Yeah. What I love about it, like I've done this for a while as well, is that you're taking the actions, like it's a process of ease, because you're essentially you're planting when the ground is fertile. You're taking the actions when the energy supports you being able to do it. And that is so helpful. You know, like when you see people freaking out at the full moon, there's a reason for that. Like there's a lot of energy available at that time. If you have kind of done all the phases before that, you know where you need to direct that energy. When you don't, something will step in to fill the vacuum.
My favorite part of the moon work is how magical life becomes. Like life just organizes itself in this very subtle way where things just show up exactly when they're needed. It's like the universe is like, thank you. We love you so much for honoring the moon. We're going to just give you everything you need whenever you need it. It's really surreal. I mean, that's what, do you ladies experience that?
Oh my gosh. It reflects to me the laws of attraction. So the moon always gives me this opportunity to be on the path of least resistance and shortest distance.
Yes.
To any place I want to go.
Yes.
I'm not swimming against the tide. I'm learning to flow.
Yes.
Literally, because the moon's all about intuition and water. And yeah, it truly does align us with the magic that we are. We're an expression of creation. And this is, a mirror for us.
Yeah. And it's sort of like, we're what, 70% water or something like that, our body is. So we're pulled just like the tides are. And so it's it's really just moving with it instead of moving against it. That's how I see it. All right. So being able to differentiate and really know what your unique strength is powerful. That Aquarian work, of really identifying where is my brilliance, where is my genius. Perfection, growth, and meaning are available when you develop service consciousness. So the question is, how will you serve at the end of this moon cycle with the support of a sacred community? And are you ready to embrace a new service consciousness that reflects your true genius? That's really the arc of this coming month. And then Monique, you want to talk about that group?
Yes. So we are a community of initiates, basically. And this cycle goes for 28 days, and it starts on February 4th. And we take initiates through the lunar cycle with a new theme every month. If you'd like to join, what we do is we coach you with helping you pick 2 goals each month. And, sometimes maybe you might pick 1 or something like that, but the goals really are aligned to what's going on in your chart, in your natal chart. And because Christine has, I love the way how we sort of figured out that, the new moon is when the clearing is going on. It really makes the process so individual and private to your own life. So that's one part of it. And then there's a private Facebook group, daily guidance videos, Cheryl does elemental rituals. You have access to myself, Cheryl, and Christine. There's a moon manifestation library, accountability exercises throughout the cycle. There is a monthly astrology call that Christine facilitates, and then one that I facilitate, and one that Cheryl facilitates. And so you have so much here to really support you in embodying this work. And it's life-changing. It truly is. So if you wanted to join today, the first month is $67. The code for this month is 13 Moons Aquarius at bit.ly/13 Moons. Every month after the first month is $97. And yeah, so we welcome you. We're grateful that you are here this evening. Is there anything else that you want to add, ladies, or does anyone have a question?
Janet had a question before for you, Cheryl.
I typed it. Yeah, so the path of least resistance, shortest distance.
It's great.
Yeah, it truly is.
It's kind of like the whole concept of moving with the tide instead of swimming upstream.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, makes a big difference. So, ladies, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining
Thank
us
you.
this
Yeah, thanks for
evening.
being here.
And we are excited, and we will see you back in the group. And peace and blessings, everyone.
Peace and blessings. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.